All right. Hi, everybody. It's Jill Rothstein here, author of the Heaven Sent series. Welcome to my segment, Three Questions With. I have a very special guest in Elsie McArthur. Elsie, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. I'm so excited to do this. Elsie and I met on Twitter. I've been chit-chatting ever since. And finally, we get to chat today about writing and to ask her questions about her books. So I know you've got your books with you. I saw them earlier. So do you want to hold them up and tell us a little bit about your newest book, The Backup Plan?
Yeah, fab. These are my two books that I have out at the minute. So this is The Backup Plan, which is currently available through Amazon on paperback and Kindle. And this is my new release called Love on the Rocks, which will be coming out on the 20th of August. So just a couple of weeks away.
Oh, I love that cover. That's
Oh,
a beautiful cover. Yeah, it's like sunset.
Want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I want to be, not stuck in my house in this humid, awful weather. But let's jump right into the question. So just to remind everybody who's watching that that Elsie sent the questions to me, but not the answers, which is great because I like to be as excited as everybody else who's sitting at home watching this. So your first question is, what is your favorite thing about being a writer?
Well, I've always been a complete daydreamer, so I love that writing kind of gives me an excuse to daydream and put all those little musings and thoughts that you have down on paper. I'm also quite nosy, if I'm being honest. I quite like sort of finding out about how people behave and think and why we do the things that we do. So the fact that I kind of focus on relationships and kind of interpersonal stuff in my books kind of comes from that, I suppose. When I'm out and about, I'll always kind of see people and wonder, what brought you to this place in your life? Who are you? Where'd you come from? What's your backstory? That kind of thing. And I think it's quite a natural thing to then explore that through your writing and when you're building characters. I also just love the escapism of it, the fact that it's kind of an opportunity to be somebody else and imagine what it would be like to live somebody else's life and do different things that we don't do in the life that we have. So for me, the escapist part of it is great as well. Also, my books have a strong romantic focus, so I also love the fact that I get to give my characters the happily ever after that people don't always get in the real world.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a disappointment, at least for myself personally, if I'm reading a romance novel and there's no happy ending. I'm like, wait a minute, this has to be a happy ending. But I know that in certain cultures that they don't believe in that. I remember early on watching French movies and finding out that no, they don't do happy endings. Like they don't exist. Like they're unhappy endings. It's like, it's like, I want that happy ending. Nobody has that generally in life. That's why you're sort of reading to escape. So that is a great answer. And I think a lot of people can relate to that whole world building and escapism factor to that.
Definitely.
So with our next question, we get into a little bit more of the actual writing itself and the process of writing itself and talking to you about what keeps you motivated, what keeps you wanting to write.
I think I've always struggled with motivation, which is why I thought this would be an interesting question to talk about because it's something that I do find difficult.
Now, why did you pick this question for yourself of your father? She's like, wait a minute, why did I pick this question?
I'm going to be honest, open and honest. So, I mean, I've always written stories since I was a child, always loved that imaginative world, and always felt like I could write a book one day. But I'd always get to that point where I was just overwhelmed with the enormity of it, and it just felt like I was never going to get to the point where I could see something through to completion. And the turning point for me personally was my daughter was born about 5 years ago, and I just started to kind of reevaluate things and what I wanted to do with my life and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to achieve. And the kind of model that I wanted to set for her in terms of, going after the things that you want in life and pursuing those goals and not just kind of giving up on your dreams and sitting back. So that was kind of what pushed me really. So I went back into it. I very naively thought that having a year off work to raise a baby was going to mean that I had loads of time to write a book, which I now realise is not the case. But it did give me that opportunity to kind of reevaluate things a little bit. I decided that this time I'm just, no matter what, I am going to finish it. And even if it's awful, even if it's rubbish, I'm going to get to the end and at least I can say I have finished it. And now I kind of have that buzz of whenever I do get the little doubts and the niggles in your mind, I kind of tell myself, you've done it once, you can do it again. And you just got to keep pushing through those hurdles one step at a time and you'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's really important, the whole commentary about, finish it, whatever it is that you started. And I know I read once and took a master class with Neil Gaiman, and it was like his number one piece of advice was just finish whatever it is you're working on, just finish it, and then move on to the next thing and finish that. That a lot of times we leave ourselves surrounded by a whole bunch of unfinished stuff that has a way of sort of manifesting. So I think that that's a great bit of advice. And then maybe just a little tag on to that question is just how do you recharge? We all have to find inspiration somewhere.
Absolutely.
In order to become motivated, in order to then keep writing. So what do you do for yourself for that?
I mean, for me, just spending time with my family, spending time out in the countryside, outdoors, walking our dogs, going to the beach, just having time to relax. And I think when you do get to that point where you've kind of hit a block in terms of your writing, just taking time out to let things percolate and kind of filter through and do other stuff. And then eventually I kind of find that there comes a point where it's like, all right, I know I'm ready to get back on the horse.
Yeah. You kind of just instinctively know. It's like, yep, now it's time for me to sit down and do it. It's not any one thing. So yeah, exactly. So that's great. So for process of writing, your last question I wanted to ask about, which I've asked a whole bunch of people about this, is whether or not you're the quote unquote planner or you are the pantser. Do you outline, or do you just sit down and kind of write?
I am more of a planner, definitely.
Okay.
I do set out with an outline. I maybe don't go all the way to the very end of the story, but I do like to kind of plan out the first few steps and maybe earmark some of the key events that are going to come at some point further down the line. But for me, it's a huge working document. It's constantly being changed, adapted, tweaked. And the thing that I think amazed me when I first kind of got to the point of writing something that was a bigger piece of writing, a longer piece of writing, was the fact that the characters kind of totally came to life. And it was like, no, we're not doing that now. We're doing something different. That's not happening anymore. And it would go off at a tangent and completely take me by surprise as well. So plan, but very fluidly.
I think that's a great way to put it, because one of the things I didn't outline in my first sort of draft and I told someone later, it kind of read like that. Like it read like I had pieced it together because I basically had. And so I had to then end up using the first draft almost as an outline. Mm-hmm. But there were things that organically just happen in the process of writing that's kind of hard to explain to somebody, where either the story takes you someplace else or you create or manifest a new character or a new storyline. And I always felt like the reason I didn't outline to start with was because I wanted to make sure that I left room for those, that they actually happen and that they happen naturally in the story, because I didn't want it to feel like some sort of recipe or maybe too robotic, because there's something sort of magical about this whole process, when you're sitting down in front of a computer and you're just creating something out of nothing. And people talk about how there's nothing new under the sun. Everyone's done fantasy or people do romance novels, but every story is unique. Your story is unique to you. So I just found that aspect of it, I was very nervous about the outlining because I didn't want to miss out on those organic moments. So I don't know if you kind of feel that same way when you're writing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, you don't want to be formulaic. You don't want it to be like, and now we're going to do this, and now we're going to do that. And you've kind of forced them down an avenue that doesn't feel natural. So I feel more secure having something there to kind of help structure me and guide me. But I definitely don't want to be tied down to it or have it set in stone. I want to be able to kind of go off and do different things with it and change it.
Yeah, absolutely. I could, the great bits of advice, and you're on to your second book, and that's fantastic. And I would imagine with every book that happens, you gain a little bit more confidence and more starts to happen, and the writing gets better and everything gets easier, and you sort of fall into that. So that is so exciting for you. I'm so excited for you. I hope everybody goes out to Amazon and picks up The Backup Plan, and keep an eye out for Love on the Rocks as it's coming. And they can find you on Twitter like I did at Elsie McArthur with the capital E and the capital M in her name. But thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for joining. This is so much fun. And I hope lots and lots and lots of people watch it, not only buy your books, but watch it and take those bits of wisdom with them as they go out into their writing journey. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.